I take it we don't have any citizens communication.
Nope.
Did everyone have a chance to look at the minutes from the last meeting? Were there any questions? Do we have a motion for approval?
I move to approve the minutes.
And a second?
A second.
Minutes approved. And that takes us to the library director report.
Okay, first thing, Matt and Jillian are up for renewal for your application to the board. The applications open on October 30th and close on November 10th. Notices will be sent out. And we do have one vacancy coming up. Dawn is terming out, so she has to sit out for 2 years. If you know anybody who would be interested, encourage them to apply when those applications open on the 30th. That would be awesome. Okay, so the director's report. It's the end of year stats, and everything looked good for last year. We're getting close to pre-pandemic levels on visits to the library and program attendance. We're not quite there yet, but I suspect we will be there soon enough. We have actually gotten more active library accounts now than we've ever had. So for years sort of hovered around 27,000, 28,000, and we're up to, well, at the time of this report, 32,000. So that was good. Circulation's looking good, and then I included a couple of charts that show our budget versus circulation by format. So you'll see that our physical items is still slightly higher in our budget than our electronic items, although those are catching up. And our circ items, checkout is just slightly above our electronic. And again, I anticipate it will always be sort of half and half, not exactly half and half. Electronic resources will creep up and vice versa, but that would be my sense is that one isn't going to take over the other. We're going to balance both of them. Our programs, we had LibCon, that was awesome, and we had almost 2,200 guests. We had 2,199, and you can see Spider-Man and the Stay Puft guy from Ghostbusters. So everybody had a great time. It was all ages. It ran all day on Saturday, September 23rd, which I think was good. Before we experimented around with the time for it, we've made it shorter or what have you, but that just ended up having so many people in the same place at one time that stretching it out over the whole day really allowed it to flow more smoothly, I think. The kittens from Paws, I think most of them were adopted, if not all of them. They were adorable. But Kitty Cafe still happens, and we have Project Runway coming up, I believe on the 30th. So that's going to be a maker program and then a virtual runway show for your pets. And then, of course, Toddler Show and Tell. One of my favorite programs is coming up, and that's Toddler Talent Show. Oh. If you haven't seen The Glory, you need to. Those kids. And that's all I have for the director's report. Any questions? Yes?
The program attendance chart, it looks like we got like about 3,000 virtual. Are we trying to get rid of all virtual programs?
No, we're just keeping track to see how well attended those are. And see, right now we just introduced a new one, and by we, I mean our awesome adult services, head of adult services, Betty, she introduced Homemakers. And those are maker programs for people who are homebound. So they can have somebody come and pick up a kit for them, and then they can watch on demand the instruction video of how to make the craft. So that one has proved to be pretty popular.
Do you think the numbers are down because we have fewer programs or because fewer people are attending?
I think, well, both. We have fewer programs, and now our programs are back in person. where you see there, the 9,469 and the 8,918, about half the year, that year, we did not have in-person programs. So that's why that number is, looks like that. And then the year before, we didn't have any in-person programs because of COVID. So if you look at fiscal year 2020, we closed in March, I believe, of that year. So that fiscal year, you know, it was just about half where we had in-person programs. And then we went straight virtual in fiscal year 21. And again, our fiscal year starts in October. So this isn't, we're not talking about a calendar year.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions? That takes us to the Friends of the Pflugerville Library report.
Okay, the Friends have another book sale coming up. I believe it is November 3rd. And we've been doing them quarterly, and that seems to work out very well for them. They were at LibCon also. They had a table. What they had done was all donated manga and graphic novels. They sort of put them aside. And so when LibCon rolled around, they had a big table with all their graphic novels and manga, and they were able to sell them there. And they did it on a, like a timed thing. So like for the first hour, the items were $5. Second hour, they were $3 and so forth. I don't know if that was the exact times, but that was the idea. So people seem to really enjoy that, and they moved a lot of merchandise that way. So they have another one, just our regular one that takes place in the Great Hall will be happening on the 3rd. And that reminds me that we actually do have to tear it down that Monday, Daniel, because we have voting coming up on the 7th. November 7th, we're a polling place. And that will take place in the Great Hall. So Travis County will come and set up their voting machines, and people can actually vote here. We're going to be also a polling site, I believe, in March, and that is for the presidential primaries. So we're actually going to be using the meeting rooms for that one because it's a little more, they expect a little more attendance for that. But anyway, that has nothing to do with the Friends. So the Friends are doing very well attracting new members. They've got a lot of very tech-savvy younger members who have joined. And they are working on a web page, and they are doing a lot more social media posts and more interactive things for people. So I think that's pretty popular also. And that's what I have for them.
Any questions on that?
Anybody who wants to join the Friends from the board can.
The Friends, is that strictly fundraising, or are they kind of like an arm of the marketing department as far as getting the word out?
Both,
Okay.
yeah. I think for a long time, they were mostly just book sales, but now that they have this tech team, they are really awesome and amazing and doing all of it for free, so, yeah, it's great.
And we are discussing consider action to formally support the Library Bill of Rights and the Freedom to Read statement.
So the Library Bill of Rights, I should start with, has been around for quite some time with the American Library Association. And I brought it here for you guys to read. And I had not brought this to a library board before to decide whether or not they wanted to formally support it. But I thought it would be good to do, not only because of the environment right now for public libraries, but also because this has really sort of become something that we lead with in most of our documents, like our 5-year plan, and I had added some verbiage from it to the policies, so it might be something that you guys would like to consider formally, supporting. So basically, the Freedom to Read statement says that that freedom of communication is essential, and to the preservation of a free society. In order to be a free society, you have to be able to read freely and get free access to information of all types. So that's basically the Freedom to Read statement. The Library Bill of Rights is sort of talking about the obligation that libraries have to the populace. And that includes making sure that you have a variety of point of views and experiences in your collection that reflect the larger global society and not just the community that you are serving at that time. So,
So what do we need to do to?
somebody just has to make a motion and take a vote. Motion, second, and a vote.
Well, go ahead.
Will I make a motion to formally endorse the Library Bill of Rights and the Freedom to Read statement?
I second.
Okay.
All those in favor?
To vote, all those in favor?
I'm sorry.
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? We formally support the Library Bill of Rights and Freedom to Read statement.
Okay.
And next up is discuss and consider action on board member leave of absence.
Oh, I forgot about that. Okay, so y'all had asked for clarification on the ordinance. And I looked it up, and I'll read you that, but then I also asked the city secretary because I was still like, what do we do? Okay, so it's number 31.05, dismissal absences. A, commission members shall actively participate in the commission's activities, and any member who is absent for 3 consecutive regular meetings of the commission without a valid excuse as determined by the commission or moves one's resident outside the city limits shall automatically be dismissed from membership. No member of the commission shall remain in their position after being elected or appointed to city, county, or state board or office without approval from the city council. So that part. So then I asked the city secretary for clarification, and she said that absences, if you know in advance that you're going to need to be out, need to be brought to the board and approved by the board. So that means I have to put it on the agenda. I may just be able to, and I'll have to ask her, put just like a generic thing on every agenda that says approve or you know, whatever, any absences. If it is an unscheduled absence, then they can approve it after the fact. So you could approve it in the next meeting. And
Oh,
she
excuse
said,
me.
yeah.
And what you just read,
Mhm.
I don't understand why it would be the board's responsibility to determine that the excuse is valid. I don't understand that.
That's a question for the city secretary. I can ask her.
That's, I mean, I'm asking from an HR standpoint.
Okay.
Valid is subjective. You are the authority for approving leave absences for the employees. So
Yes.
the standard would be the same, except for the 3 consecutive absences or whatever else, whatever other standard that you have determined. But if you can do that for the paid employees, then you should be able to do the same thing for the volunteers.
I can bring that to her
Okay,
and ask her about
and-
that, but she
yeah.
did say either way, it has to be an item on the agenda for the board to vote on. So, I'll take
Okay,
that to
I
her
just-
and ask her. But I think that the easiest way, and I will ask her also if I can do it, if she says, you know, you have to go by what she said here,
Okay.
would be to put, just have a generic item every meeting.
So if there's a difference between the 3 consecutive and just someone being out for being sick or, you know, some other personal reason, does the board vote on both of those types of absences?
That's why I'm saying what I'm
Yeah.
saying.
No.
Because
If-
valid is subjective, okay?
It-
To
Right.
okay, and then if you're going to establish what is valid, okay? And I just feel like that's not anything that we need to do. I feel like the library director, whoever, however they're running the ship for the paid employees, the volunteers, if they have the authority to do it. So for me, if Jennifer said, whatever they told you, whatever they call, I don't even need to know that the person is sick or had a death or they got HIV. I don't need to know that. Okay, that's, you know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? So, for me, if you approve it, I'm fine.
I
So
disagree.
Excuse me?
I said I disagree.
Okay.
I also disagree. Not that I think Jennifer has a very good ability to judge absences for your staff, but the language of that seems to be that the board itself must consider and set parameters in order, and valid is subjective, understandably, but I think that's the role of a deliberative body, is to be able to assess, understand, and then make a decision after thorough and robust debate.
So what would you use to determine what's a valid excuse? What would you use as the, what's the guideline for determining that?
So that determination is made by the board. The board gets to
Oh.
have robust debate and share our ideas and all discuss, and we are a deliberative body. That is our very job.
So, do all the city boards then have different validities? Or is this something the city should come up with? You
I mean,
see,
absolutely, and the answer is yes. Like each individual board, since they're comprised of different individuals, would have a different assumption and understanding of what is valid. The reading of that is valid is what we as a deliberative body decide is valid.
Okay, so what I'm
The
saying
first
is,
criteria you have to meet is 3 consecutive meetings. So being on the HOA board in my neighborhood for 16 years, Robert's Rules of Order, 3 consecutive meetings. So that would be the first criteria. We don't even need to approve an absence if I'm gone, like I was gone last week, right? If I don't want that approved by the board, I don't have to get it approved because it's not 3 consecutive absences. So if you know you're gonna be out for 3 consecutive absences, that's the only criteria that initiates an evaluation of excused absences.
and that's what I was
so,
wondering.
okay, so then what you're making it an absolute then, 3 consecutive absences, regardless of the reason, can be unilaterally decided, okay, they're off the board.
Yes, ma'am.
I disagree, okay.
Well, and I think it's a little different than what the secretary gave us advice on, and I think that that's less out of the strict definition of the absence policy and more out of prudence. She recommended that we either in advance or after the fact approve absences on a rolling basis, as a matter of course, and I think that that's just prudent and like good administration rather than being a hard and fast rule, because it does take 3 consecutive absences to trigger the provision.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. But if like someone didn't want to share their excuse,
Certainly.
and yeah, they could just say, I'll just take an unexcused absence.
Absolutely.
And so to speak on the other point that the other board members were bringing up about the validity of the excuse.
Well, and I think also if
Yeah, I
you
agree.
miss 3 meetings in a row, that's a quarter of our tenure on the board, and then you have, so I think in that case, regardless of your excuse, if you were sick for those 3 meetings, I still think then it's a fair evaluation to bring to the board, as if someone has already missed a quarter of our time. Is there somebody else in the community that could make that
Yeah,
commitment?
and that's the reason we have an alternate. That's why you have an alternate.
But then but in that case, because this has happened before, is that person was removed from the board and we brought in a new board member, like immediately. I think it was the following city council meeting, they appointed a new member.
Okay, I'll use me as an example. I missed January and February only because Jennifer had the wrong email for me. Okay, so that's 2.
No, and I
So I
think,
think,
but in that case, those were 2, and also if that was brought to, I don't think anybody
but,
here would say that's not a valid
all I'm
excuse.
saying is the board doesn't need to know that. That's.
Well, and that's your
something-
prerogative to not share if you don't want to. If I have an absence and it's for a personal reason and I don't want to share, I can either bring that to the board's attention in some sort of vague plea, or I can choose not to, and as was described, just take the absence. But I think it's something that's prudent to assess regularly, so that when it does come to the fact that someone has 3 unapproved absences in a row, we can then as a board decide what measure to take.
And that seems very reasonable. I just wondered, the difference between, 3 consecutive and just someone being absent. Are we gonna have to discuss that in the board? Or is it just with the 3 consecutive that it really needs to come to the board?
I think the answer is a formal decision need only be made when there's 3 consecutive absences under the provision that Jennifer read. However, as good administration, it's prudent to keep, track of that every meeting and either in advance or after the fact, either approve or disapprove of absences. Like one's an administrative measure to just keep on top of things as an organization, and the other is actually triggered by the provision.
But like you said, if it is a planned absence, but you don't want to share the reason and it will just be one, you also don't have to share it because your attendance would be marked just by the meeting minutes.
And then you don't have to have
And
a
then
big
you-
discussion
right.
about it.
Then you don't have to.
Okay, I
yeah.
just wanted to know if there was
So
a
it's okay
difference.
to miss 3 meetings, which is, again, 1/3. They're just not consecutive, so.
I mean, technically, it would be fine to miss 9 meetings because you could miss 2 and then be there and 2
Yeah.
and then be there and 2 and
Yeah, so
whatever.
that's what I'm saying, what's the point?
Technically, you could
It's a
miss
statute,
3
enough.
consecutively.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
just the difference then becomes up to the board to decide if those absences are excused or unexcused.
Right.
Like the board is who gets to decide.
Shall I take it to the city secretary for further clarification?
I think that would be wise.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and then bring it back?
yeah.
Okay, I will do that.
Perhaps she has some guidance or maybe best practices from other boards
just
on
about to
what
say what other
they
boards do.
consider valid, because it seems like maybe that would benefit, we would benefit from some more edification.
Well, and this is new, kind of the way that this is being enforced, right? So,
We might not be the only boards
Right,
with these
yeah.
questions.
Precisely.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, because it is new that it's now going to all boards, so.
we can still discuss, though, the leave of absence that we have currently, though, right?
It would have to be for next time because I did not get notice of it prior to this.
Not for our personal, but weren't we still hadn't we not voted on,
Do we need to take action on somebody who's missed 3
Yeah.
absences in a row?
Not today because we didn't know she was going to be gone
I see.
in
Okay.
time to have that specifically
Got it.
on
On the
on the
agenda.
agenda, yeah. Because she did say if you know ahead of time, that needs to be specific on the agenda. And this was a general discussion about that.
Got
So, yeah. So it's not consecutive for her either, I don't think, but, yeah, it'll be next month.
For the discussion next month, can we have the chart of meetings that members have made and missed over the last 2 years? So
Sure,
we can look at it as a whole?
yeah.
We discussed last time, though, we wouldn't be retroactively,
Mm-mm.
okay.
Yeah. No, I don't believe it's retroactive, but it might be a good thing to look at just to see if it actually even is a problem. I know that we have had people in the past that just stopped coming, so that was an issue. So, yeah, I'll bring it, I'll get clarification, and I might ask Nathan to cut out a little piece of this video so I can go specifically.
Did you also find out what the requirements were before the new policies got put in place?
The new,
So we said this was a new policy that's being implemented, right?
it's not a library policy though, it's a city ordinance. And I think it was always there, it just never was really enforced.
Okay.
Yeah. So it doesn't have anything to do with our policy discussion tonight.
That one we are tabling until we have further information for the
Yes.
next meeting. In that case, let's move on to our final item for discuss and consider action to review and approve the library policies.
Okay. As I mentioned, I put in some language from, not really from the freedom to read statement, but just saying that, the library supports the Library Bill of Rights and Freedom to Read statement and believe that we serve everyone in the community, and that we have obligations to everybody in the community. So I put that in there. Other than just cleaning up a few things here and there, I hadn't made any real changes. There aren't any new policies here. I believe we did take out some, Daniel had pointed out some language under Fab Lab equipment that seemed redundant, because we're just really, it's a policy for any equipment in the Fab Lab, so I took that out. And other than that, I think everything is the same unless, you guys, and you certainly don't need to decide tonight, you can mull over this as long as you want to, really, there's no deadline on it. So I didn't make any substantial changes as far as content goes. Oop, I already see a mistake under 2.3. Ignore the number, it should be a bullet.
There's another capital library.
I was just thinking I tried really hard to get all the capitals. What page?
Page 12, under the disclaimer, in the third line.
Found it. The highlighted words in here that was a suggestion from the legal department. Once you guys go over these and make any other changes, then I send it to legal so they can look over it. But this was from last year's legal preview, I guess, or review.
I think in 2.3.1 on truancy, in the second paragraph, I'm missing an article before library.
Yep.
In the Fab Lab equipment section, is there a reason the very last part, so right above meeting room, where it specifically calls out for furnishes a sublimation printer, when there's kind of a blanket statement at the top of the section?
I think it was I thought I had deleted that. That was the one we had talked about, right? That should have been deleted, I'm sorry.
In the challenged material section, where it says they have to have read, watched the entire work, is that what, we're just taking them at their word on that one?
Yeah.
Okay.
They have to write an essay.
Well, that might help. One thing I've noticed is that director sometimes is capitalized and sometimes is not.
I'm really bad about that. Caps on director, okay.
Just a mix throughout the whole
It's
document.
because I'm indecisive.
Well, it could conceivably need to be capitalized if it's being used as a proper noun.
Well, I just think it needs to be consistent,
Yeah,
depending on the usage, yeah.
I'll check it. I'm really bad about doing that with library too. I love to capitalize library. I don't know why. I just do.
It's like truth with a capital T.
Yeah.
Library.
I'll make a motion to approve the policies and procedures as presented.
I second.
Okay. All those in favor to approve?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, we approve the library policies as stated. Okay, and if there are no further topics to discover, I adjourn this meeting.
Okay. Y'all want to go look at the pen?